What is this? What is this?
This is the young God.
Wait.
The game gonna give you what you give it.
Right.
And when you're not giving it nothing, it ain't gonna give you nothing. And you can't prostitute the game. You can't just seduce it. The game is sophisticated, man, and the game has game. The game understands what you put in, you're gonna get out. The game understands that there has to be affection and attention and consideration for it to give you the results that you want. This game is real.
I love games. Video games, board games, mind games, you name it. I love to play. I love to compete. I love to win. Whether it's FIFA, Scrabble, Truth or Dare, I'm there. Even if I lose, I still win. Just because, as I said, I love to play and compete. In those moments, life is sweet. Speaking of life, that's the ultimate game. A game of the highest stakes. Like Game of Thrones is either you win or you die. Death could be physical, spiritual, or figurative, depending on the game you're playing and how you play it. The question then becomes, what game are you playing? Do you know? And what does winning look like? Lucky for you, I have the perfect analogy to help you answer these questions. Remember those episodes where I got hella high watching Harry Potter and it led to my Philosopher's Stone epiphany? Well, it's about to be the second time I found a truth in Harry Potter. In the Harry Potter universe, there's a sporting event called Quidditch. At first glance, it appears to be a fun, fictional game, but maybe due to the combination of my intelligence and my highness, I stumbled upon deep wisdom that I think is helpful in understanding the true nature of the game of life. The objective of the game is to drive a ball, the quaffle, as many times as you can through one of the 350-foot sky-high goal hoops while flying about the pitch on magic brooms. Doing so is worth 10 points to the scorer's team. However, while that is going on, two separate players, one from each team, are busy playing another game, a game within the game. They are known as Seekers, the two best players who are exceptionally skilled in focus and flight. Their job is to try to locate, chase, and capture a tiny golden winged ball called the snitch. The snitch is very difficult to find and even more difficult to catch because it zips around unpredictably and is very, very fast. If a seeker captures the snitch, his or her team gains 150 points, which wins the game in most situations. In my highness, I realized how profound this idea is. The game of Quidditch is a metaphor for the game of life as well as any other game, and the snitch represents what is most important at any given moment. Think about it. Most people are playing the low-point games, aiming for the low-hanging fruit, focusing on the unimportant stuff, either out of ease or ignorance. And while they're busy being distracted, the gods among us are playing a higher-level game, a more difficult but exponentially more rewarding game. They have identified what is really and truly important, that thing that, if they're able to achieve or find, will enable them to gain the edge over others and win the game. So while life is one big game, there are many games within the game that you have to play. Finances, love, personal and spiritual growth, children, education, work, etc. Each one connected to the other. And still, within each of those games are even deeper games within the game that affect the outcome of the main game in major ways.
The game is sophisticated, man, and the game has game.
To be a god, you have to figure out what game you're playing and what is most important in that particular game at that particular time in order to win. This epiphany had me thinking for days, and it's just become apparent how it applies in all things all the time. And I would like to share this newfound understanding with you, so that in the end, maybe you'll come to know what it really means to win at life.
Bullet!
My name is Rodney Omolkache, and you are welcome to The Young God, a podcast for gods.
Yep. Stand back, gotta talk. Watch cost.
In my intro, I used a fictional game from a fictional story to bring to your attention the game of life and the levels to it. Now let's get mathematical. In mathematics, there's something called game theory.
In game theory, there are two kinds of games. There are finite games and there are infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. Baseball. We all agree what the rules are, and at the end of 9 innings, whoever has more runs, we declare the winner and the game is over. No one ever says, wait, if we can just play 3 more innings, I know we can come back and win. Doesn't happen, right? You have winners and you have losers, right? Then there's an infinite game. An infinite game is defined as known and unknown players. The rules are changeable, and the objective is to keep the game in play, to perpetuate the game. When you pit a finite player versus a finite player, the system is stable. Baseball is stable. When you pit an infinite player versus an infinite player, the system is also stable. The Cold War was stable because there can be no winners and losers. It doesn't exist. That's not a scenario we want. And so you keep the game in play to keep it stable. And in an infinite game, because there are no winners or losers, what happens is players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to play. And then they're replaced by other players. The game perpetuates, the players change out. Problems arise when you pit a finite player versus an infinite player, because the finite player is playing to win, and the infinite player is playing to stay in the game. And the finite player will always get frustrated. They will find themselves in quagmire. This was the United States in Vietnam. We were fighting to win. They were fighting for their lives. This was the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. They were fighting to beat the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen would fight for as long as was necessary. Now, let's look at the game of business. The game of business is, by its very definition, an infinite game. It has pre-existed before every single company on this planet ever existed, and it will outlast every single company on this planet. But if you listen to the words of most companies, they don't know the game they're in. You listen to companies, they want to be number one. Based on what metrics? Based on what time frames? Revenues? Market share? Square footage? Number of employees? Based on a quarter, a year? 5 years, 10 years, 50 years? I didn't agree to those standards. You can't suddenly just arbitrarily say we're number one. No one else agreed to the standards. It's nonsense to beat our competition. Based on what? And they study their competition, trying to outdo their competition. And yet I've never heard of a company that's taken down by the competitors they know. They're always taken down by the competitors they don't know. Do you think MySpace knew that Facebook existed? They were worried about Friendster. You can't make strategic decisions from studying your competition. You can make tactical decisions from studying your competition, but not strategic decisions. But when you listen to the way most companies play the game, they're in the wrong game. That's why they get frustrated. The great organizations understand that they're playing to stay in the game.
Bro is spitting, isn't he? I mean, this is game. This is free game to really like explain the game.
The understanding of knowing what game you're in radically changes the kinds of decisions you make and the way you see the world. It is also tremendously confidence building. Let me give you a true story. I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated?
Now, let's listen to what Steve Jobs himself had to say about the infinite game.
One of the things I don't see is, I don't see it myself, I don't see it in enough of the rest of us, is I don't see that startup hustle. In other words, if we zoom out at the big picture, it would be a shame to have lost the war because we won a few battles. And I sort of feel like I and some of the rest of us are concentrating too much on the smaller battles.
We have to
and we're not keeping the war in perspective. And the war is called survival. The war is called not run out of money until we get our product on the market.
That is Steve Jobs before Apple was Apple. The finite infinite game idea also applies in sports. Listen to comedian Hassan Minhaj go off on the myopic way winning is discussed in sports, particularly American sports, particularly when it comes to basketball and Michael Jordan.
One of the things that I find to be the most irritating about the sports talk shows is they really make it this one bucket type of winning. Who right now the obsession is LeBron. You know, it's always this LeBron, Kobe, MJ debate ad infinitum. But to me, the older I've gotten and I've been in different parts of my career, I'm realizing the game is so much longer than that. And to me, real winning is it's not just the points on the board and winners and losers. You know, during the pandemic, everybody was watching The Last Dance. And they were like, MJ's the ultimate winner. And I'm like, what window? And by what metric? To me, the real winner is Steve Kerr. In my opinion, what are my buckets that I'm classifying this as? Professional satisfaction, personal satisfaction, sanity and clarity of mind. Bro, I don't have to say this. You watch some of these clips of these guys that played on the Bulls, you're like, man, bro, get it together. Like clarity and sanity in your mind. The story doesn't end well for a lot of these guys. And to me, Steve, what he's gone through, his father was killed, murdered as a young kid. For him to go through that, be a bubble player, be a role player, be a GM, and have a meaningful, healthy relationship with his children, with his spouse, that to me is the real winning. And I don't think we look at winning as this 70 to, God willing, 80-year thing. About the story of your life. The totality of that is defining what it means to win.
Think about it. This is not being talked about in the winning conversation. The finite game of a basketball career ends after 20 years max. And regardless of whether you won or not, what you're left with is the aftertaste, the aftermath of the bridges you burned and the people you turned.
You know, God rest the dead. I remember reading Kobe Bryant's Players Tribune letter. He writes about family and cutting people off. Man, there's a lot of pain in that. There's a lot of pain in that letter towards their siblings and family members and loved ones. And there's part of me that's like, there are so many kids I know that got Kobe 6 Protros from the top to the bottom shelf. And they wish they could cut their own finger off to be Kobe. And I'm like, would you also trade in the fact that there were years he wasn't on speaking terms with his family? That's also part of the deal too. So when you talk about Mamba mentality, is that part of it worth it too? And I think that is not being talked about in the winning conversation.
Luckily for Kobe, he had the self-awareness to transition into the infinite game towards the end of his playing career. He made it a point to be as great a person as he was a basketball player. He would always say, everything is a billion, meaning you can and should strive to be excellent in all things, and he embodied that as a husband, father, businessman, public figure, etc. The Mamba mentality evolved into that holistic idea of a well-rounded life. By the time he died, his legacy as a supreme infinite game player was cemented, and he inspired millions to do the same. Unfortunately, not everyone is so lucky to live long enough to realize what's important. Comedian Hassan Minhaj continued as he turns his focus to Steve Jobs. Listen.
When Walter Isaacson had his books Jobs in 2009, 2010, that really shaped what winning was in entrepreneurship and business. And to me, I was like, wait, is that winning? You have an estranged daughter, you lose touch, but fine, I got the iPhone 6. We need to have a holistic thing on what it means to win.
What Hassan Minhaj is trying to communicate is that Steve sacrificed relationships, both personally and professionally, on the altar of Apple. To use his own words from the earlier clip, he won the battle but lost the war. In the end, his deathbed was filled with regrets. I say all of this to say that we need to consciously hone a holistic view of winning. We need to think of the entire game, the bigger picture, and how the other mini games connect to one another. While others are busy trying to win one game, you need to position yourself to win in all things by prioritizing patience, sanity, clarity of mind, and high-quality relationships. Whoever said you can't have it all, lied. Through their teeth. That's the devil, fam. He wants you to give in and prioritize bullshit. He wants you to play stupid games and win stupid prizes. But I'm here to tell you that it's possible. People are winning at life in totality all the time, and they're not rare. They're out here chasing snitches and amassing spiritual riches. While you're busy listening to motivational speeches and making wishes. God damn it. Please forgive me for interrupting your vibe right now, but I just had to shout out the legendary Young God community on WhatsApp. That is an exclusive group where committed, consistent listeners of the podcast gather to share their thoughts on the themes discussed. If you would like to connect with me and other members of this community, you can join the group via the link in the description of this episode or via any of the links on my social media at I am the Young God on Twitter and at the Young God Pod on Instagram. Do follow, do subscribe, do leave a review if you're enjoying this episode, share with your friends and fam, and now let's get back to the show. Where was I? I'm still stuck on that Quidditch analogy. Harry Potter has a reputation as a kid's story, and it is in some ways, so you'd assume that it's simple and naive. But man, the books are dripping with symbolism. I mean, the way J.K. Rowling was able to use Quidditch to illustrate the simple idea that there is a low-value game and a high-value game happening simultaneously. You can apply it to so many things. There's a game within the game of life and every other aspect of it, governed by different rules but absolutely crucial to winning the main game. In the main game of life as we know it, there are set rules for thinking, living, behaving, even metrics for success that, if you don't adhere to or keep up with, you're called a loser or a problem. But there are those of us who decide that we want something more. We become self-aware and more conscious of how much we invest in the main game while looking for the snitch. Looking for and chasing the golden snitch is the inner game of self-awareness played by people who use truth as a guide, truth about themselves and truth about the world, and they use this to overcome the deceptiveness of their senses as they navigate the main game. Unfortunately for humans, we're not wired for truth. We're wired to chase pleasure and avoid pain. Our weak minds experience reality based on feelings rather than as it is. At the same time, we're desperate for progress, happiness, and status. Combine all these things and you will see why we play stupid games and win stupid prizes all the time. Now, here's another detail about Quidditch that is eerily symbolic of real life. While the seekers chase the snitch, they are simultaneously being chased by bludgers, these violent, aggressive, bewitched volleyball-type things, whose sole objective is to do damage to everything in their path, especially the seekers. If you've seen the movie or read the books, you know how intense bludgers are. They come at you with everything. They aim to kill. Anyway, what this means is that when you choose to play this high-value game within the game, you risk personal damage, ridicule, and isolation. You will attract haters. There will be setbacks. There will be pressure. Self-doubt will creep in. But the seeker chases on because they know something other people don't. They see something other people can't. And so they endure all sorts of things because they know the rewards are absolutely worth the trouble. The idea of the seeker is so profound that in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus used the words, "Seek and ye shall find." That's no accident. Then he took it a step further in the Gospel of Thomas when he said, "The seeker should not stop until he finds. When he finds, he will be disturbed, he will be astonished, then he will reign over everything." Indeed, I was quite astonished when I stumbled upon the connection between Quidditch and Christ. It's uncanny. Who could have imagined? Who would have thought? Now let's get into the mystery of the snitch. What does it really represent in all of this? The snitch represents anything that is meaningful. It's doing the work. It's doing the opposite of what people would do or are doing. It's choosing to start a podcast while everyone is doing YouTube. It's sticking to audio-only content when everyone is doing video podcasts. It's trusting your vision when distractions bring division. It's thinking for yourself while others conform to social norms and expectations. It's taking the road less traveled while others take the convenient path. It's delaying gratification. It's self-love and self-improvement. It's gathering experiences, expanding your comfort zone, playing the long game. It's discipline, not taking the easy way, being kind, being of service to others, chasing glory instead of chasing clout, making noteworthy contributions instead of whoring yourself out for attention, taking your time to find something real as opposed to marrying the first person who gives you attention. It's wisdom, truth, inspiration, and beauty, not taking things at face value and seeking the deeper meanings of events around you. It's attention to detail, it's legacy and how you're remembered, it's being the bigger person, it's excellence, competence, and integrity, it's doing whatever work you're doing well, it's aiming at perfection even though you know you'll never reach it, it's seeing the good in the bad, it's meaning in suffering, it is God. Wow. A lot of these things are abstract and elusive concepts to the average person. They can't imagine how it could possibly benefit them. But to a seeker, to a God, they are everything. They're the truth. They are pathways to a deeper, richer life experience. The average person is unaware that this niche exists at all, that there's a better way to be. They're too carried away with the low-value games because they're easy and instantly rewarding. But if you know, you know. And by their fruits you shall know them.
And so I hope when it's all said and done, people remember me, that not only like the jokes that I told and the stories that I told, those check and make muster, but when Bina, Najmi, Seema, Aisha, and my children talk about me, and my cousins and my uncles and aunts talk about me, they're like, yeah, man, he was a really good, solid person through and through.
Let's take a moment to pause and breathe. Relieve the tension. Whatever you're doing, close your eyes, take a deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's resume. When I think about it, I think I became a seeker in 2013. Only now, going into 2024, do I see the points on the scoreboard of my life. I made hard decisions early on and the points are beginning to add up. That's 10 years of chasing and being hit by the bludgers again and again. I've always said that I'm here for a good time and a long time, which means that I try to think and act long term. I consider everything, the past, the present, and the future, consequences, the feelings and well-beings of myself and others. I think about my future wife, our children, and their children, and how everything I do in the present will affect my relationship with them. I think about bridges and not burning them. I think less about accolades and more about my contributions. I ask myself, what can I give? How can I serve? How can I contribute? Because that's how you get everything in the end. It's a very long game. And because I'm playing a long game, I'm super mindful of my energy, my time, and my resources. Because in the infinite game, players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to play. And the longer you stay in the game, the more likely you are to figure it out and catch the snitch. I remind myself, I don't need everything I want right now. I'm patient. I can wait. I can fast. I think about how I want to be remembered. Because memory is important. Very important. That's another 200 points on the scoreboard of life. I want it to be said that Rodney achieved so and so, but also he was a really good, solid dude through and through. With all these things in mind, I can go after less important things like money and recognition without risking the larger game. That's my infinite game. That's my golden snitch. Call me EA because I'm in the game, bro. I know what I'm doing. I know the game I'm playing. And fam, knowing what game you're in radically changes the kinds of decisions you make and the way you see the world. It is tremendously confidence building, and I want this for you. I really do.
What advice do you give these young guys? How to approach the game?
First of all, you gotta love it. You really got to love it. There's some people in like with it.
All this talk about games is not complete without talking about play, as in actually enjoying the game and maintaining a playful attitude towards life. If life is a game, it should be fun and engaging. People have a hard go of this life thing because they approach it with such cynicism, seriousness, and fear, which is a result of the game they choose to play. For me, it's like, take life seriously enough to succeed, but not so seriously that you don't enjoy the game. Life is long and you don't want to carry too much on your head. Playfulness makes the weight lighter. It allows us to see things from different angles and protects us from dark mental states. Let your L's go. Look forward. Try again. And whatever you do, make it fun, make it matter. That's how you win whatever game you're playing, both finite and infinite. This is also where the inner child comes in. An active inner child is responsible for that spirit of playfulness. That's why Jesus Christ said the kingdom of God belongs to children. The best of us have found a balance between childlike enthusiasm and adult experience in order to love, lead, trust, and maintain our curiosity. All the things you need to enjoy life. That's why I am the young God. Emphasis on young, which is low-key and ode to being young at heart and my inner child being alive and well. I said in the beginning, I love to play. I'm a seeker, a gamer. I got game. I live in the game within the game. And by the way, you can follow the podcast on social media. Twitter, at I am the Young God. Instagram, at the Young God Pod. I regularly post exclusive content and updates on events, all kinds of things. You don't want to miss that, so please follow. I live a charmed life, man. I experience random moments of serendipity all the time. These are the benefits of being a seeker, and I want that for you. Unfortunately, everything I've said so far is stuff that people learn later on or have to go through a lot to learn. I'm fortunate that I was drawn to these ideas at an early age. I have been in this game since I was 22 years old. It's only recently that I realized what it was. The seeker, the snitch, the game within the game, all this stuff is recent. It's been a journey. I do this podcast now so that young people don't have to make all the mistakes before they know this stuff, so they can get into the infinite game ASAP. Because fam, the sooner you understand these things, the more time you can spend actually enjoying your life and leveling up. You shouldn't have to spend your prime years healing from the mistakes and delusions of your youth. I mean, think about it. Just look at the average millennial, okay? Look at the millennials. We were born at the wrong time. We were dealt a bad hand. We were taught that job title, salary, marriage, and children were the most important measures of success. And we were miserable whether we reached it or not. I remember being 15 years old saying I would be married by 21, a millionaire by 25, and retired by 40. I had all these finite game milestones I wanted to hit, but it wasn't until those ages came and passed and I hadn't done any of those things that I started growing up. I reframed what winning meant. I found out that I could simply remove myself from the rat race and define what winning meant to me. That there was room for other measures of success like sanity and peace of mind, physical health, free time, mastery, intelligence, good relationships, great sex, and contributing meaningfully to the world. Again, I'm one of the lucky ones. Many millennials never got the memo. They just kept digging themselves deeper and deeper into the finite game until they defined our generation. So if you see a millennial today, give them a hug because they're really going through it. And if you're a millennial, if you're listening, maybe you found this for a reason. Perhaps this is a sign. Perhaps this is the time. Blessed is the person who is able to gather wisdom while they're young. That's the infinite game. That's eternal life.
This game is real. And you can't just love this game just for this amount of time. It's like a woman. You got to love her intensely. You got to take her home with you. You got to take her out with you. You got to just shower her with gifts and focus because she needs it and she wants it. And she gonna bless you. and make you feel good in all the right ways, but you're gonna have to do what hadn't been done.
Right.
So what's the end game? What's the purpose of going to such great pains to win, to catch the snitch? I mean, I could say many things: to be happy, to be free, to be fulfilled, to the glory of God, you name it. These are all good and awesome things. But if I were to sum all of those under one perfect goal, one perfect word, it would be to be irreplaceable. Just like I alluded to in the King David Dynamic episode, link in the description. Irreplaceable to the point where even Beyonce herself couldn't punch you to the left. Yeah. Considering everything I've said so far, to chase the golden snitch is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to make some difference that you have lived and lived well. This combination of things is what makes you stand out, makes you different from most people. The person who does things the right way, the beautiful way, the uncommon way, and distinguishes themselves is irreplaceable. You want this person as a friend, spouse, partner, employee, boss, leader, lover, you name it. Even better is to be that yourself. That is the ultimate position of power in this world. Your presence and your absence are felt. That's that aura. That's the seeker, and the seeker is him or her. At the end of the day, making money or being successful becomes a natural result of this ideal as opposed to the goal itself. Can you see where I'm going with this? Do you feel me? Just make sure you're playing the right game at all times. It makes no sense if you win the wrong game. Don't play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Be a seeker. Chase the snitch, don't chase clout, and everything will work out for good. I promise. I promise. When you know what game you're playing, and if it's the right game, you're in a position to create what I call the ultimate goal of the seeker, a win-win situation. In game theory, a win-win game is a special case of a non-zero-sum game that produces a mutually beneficial outcome for two or more parties. Long story short, everybody wins. You carry others along because you're strong, because you understand that it's in your enlightened self-interest for no man to be left behind, for no man to be left feeling like they were manipulated or shortchanged. Win-win situations are very rare because most people think only of themselves. They think short-term and they think with a scarcity mindset. The thing is, in this game of life, if the people around you don't feel like they're being heard or considered or put in a position to succeed, they get resentful and things become complicated. It affects even you and your outcomes. So the seeker is the one who understands this simple truth. And what is this simple truth? The pathetically, stupidly, inconveniently obvious truth is that thinking only of ourselves is bad and thinking of one another is good. If you consider what's good for others and yourself, you can change the whole game with one move. In a world where people are selfish or have decided to become more selfish to avoid being taken advantage of, the best people are those who have figured out a way to carry not one, but each other along. In marriage, in business, in friendship, in anything that requires some form of negotiation and consent. It's a very elusive balance to strike, which is why many are always having issues with people. That's why it's the golden snitch. Being a decent human being is hard. Being a good leader is very hard. But those who manage to pull through and create situations for everyone to benefit are gold. And the world needs more of that desperately. Thank you for listening. Really and truly, this has been, God knows what this sounds like at the end of the day to you. It's really me trying to communicate the truth as I see it, as I feel it. And I know there's something in here somewhere I'm trying to communicate, something I'm trying to express, and I hope I did. I hope it hits that spot for you. I hope it resonates. I hope you find this worth sharing and talking about and whatever else. We're in this together, really and truly. I care deeply about more people figuring this out for themselves and living and enjoying what I think I'm living and enjoying. So, my name is Rodney Omokache, and this is for the seekers, those who change themselves and change the game. and this is the Young God.
This got talk. This got talk. Let God talk.
It brings some excitement to the world.